Here we go. All right, so we are live. So,
Hello.
yes, yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in to another construction technology webinar. It's always great to see everybody tune into these where we're really trying at EKC to connect contractors and the AEC community back to good technical solutions. And engineers, engineers, architects, anybody who could benefit from optimized workflows, saving some time, which I know we're all short on, and many more things. So I'm really excited today to have Manoj with Struct Digital, and I'll turn it over to him to give a brief intro to himself and tell us also a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Manoj. I'm the founder and CEO of Struck Digital. And what we do mostly is basically automate engineering workflows. So that can be through custom software or using AI, just a bunch of different stuff. We basically help a lot of design engineering firms streamline their operations. And in regards to my qualifications, I actually trained as a structural engineer in London for about 3.5 years before I set this company up. And the reason I did it was because I noticed a lot of personal sort of pain points
Yeah.
when I was working as a structural engineer. It was horrible. Just we had to do the same stuff over and over again.
Hmm.
I knew there was a better way, and I knew that a lot of sort of structural engineering firms just weren't equipped or didn't have the staff with the necessary skills to sort of bring forth automation, and that's why I set my company up roughly about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, that's exciting. I always love to see founders who come from industry because you
Mhm.
have so much more insight from having done these processes and been frustrated and wanting to really, really fix them. So
Exactly.
I love to see it. I guess another question that I'm curious
Mhm.
about, what led you to choose structural engineering?
Just so I always used to love bridges. Like I think as probably when I decided I wanted to do structural engineering, I was probably like 17, so there wasn't some increasing crazy reason for choosing it. I was just like, oh, I love bridges. I would love to design a bridge someday,
Nice.
and sort of that's where I started. And I was pretty good at sort of math and physics, so I was like, okay, this
Yeah,
seems like a logical choice.
it all comes together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's more of like maybe like logical slash emotional choice.
No,
Some think.
perfect. No, that's awesome. I like bridges. I'm gonna design bridges. Love it.
Yeah.
Um, so so you have this background in structural engineering. You started your own
Mhm.
company. That must have been a lot of work, obviously, but like also a
Yeah.
really big shift in how you're, in the industry, right? So from an
Yeah.
engineer designer to a tech provider.
Mhm.
Before we get into more of the discussion, tell us a little bit more about like that change from being in the profession to like being a provider to improve that profession.
Yeah, so it was kind of very interesting. Probably also because there's a lot to upskill, right? Especially when you start off. It's probably
Right.
just you, and then before you hire anyone. So the first thing I did was I did a master's in computer science and business, just because I thought I sort of lacked the skill sets in
Wow.
those two regards.
So school
So I
for
sort of
engineering and then school for software and then school for business. Wow. Yeah, that's a big commitment.
exactly. So I sort of did a master's in both of those combined. And I was like, okay. Then I sort of started working again for a structural engineering firm, sort of
Mhm.
doing more of the computational based stuff. And then I was still like, okay, this this is really going nowhere. Because a lot of companies say they want to do stuff, but then a lot of the times you're just sourced into just
Mhm.
doing structural engineering roles. So I was like, no, I want to do my own thing. So that's when I was like, okay, let me just look and figure out, if there's a market for this.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's when
Gotcha.
I sort of set the company up. I reached out to everyone who I know, and people recommended me to other people, and that's how it all started, right?
Yeah.
Um, and once we sort of got our first client, that was when like, okay, so there's actually something here,
You've got
uh,
something. Yeah.
something. And then next comes the process of like really sort of upskilling yourself, because
Yeah.
initially it was just me. and
Right.
you're just reading a lot of documentation, figuring out like, how different softwares work. Because we primarily integrate a lot of different software. So we need to figure out their APIs. We need to figure out what programming languages to use. Yeah, so I think it was like a lot of time and effort at first.
Yeah.
But then once we started getting in more clients, when we started hiring people, it just becomes much easier. And also just because you've been through the hustle, you sort of know like, okay, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do. And obviously
So
employees also bring with them a lot of skills from other roles. So that
I'll
also
I'll
helps
pause you
learn.
there just for 1 second. I do see some people kind of hopping into the session here, so thank you guys for tuning in. Just a quick note, you can use that comment or chat box to ask any questions you have or leave any thoughts you have if you're thinking about something, about anything that we're talking about, we wanna hear from you. So we will be able to see it and, communicate back to you and answer any questions or pull in any thought leadership that you guys are having. So please do use that comment and chat box. And then super quick, Manoj, I think it might be a tiny bit clearer if you're able to like hold the mic up just a
Yeah,
little bit.
for sure.
Um, yeah, I was just hearing a little bit of static or something. But yeah, that sounds good.
Cool.
Yeah, just a
That's good.
little bit should do it, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, no worries.
perfect, perfect. So I want to get into, you have a
Mm-hmm.
robust education as well as just practical experience in the
Mm-hmm.
industry,
Yeah.
specifically on that engineering and design side. So,
Mm-hmm.
illuminate for us, what are the biggest pain points that you see as you're
Yeah.
going through the design and engineering processes?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting, right? So when I started the company off, it was somewhat emotional and based on personal experience.
Mm,
But actually, the more you looked into it, the more I figured out there's just so many things in the industry which are just not normal.
yeah.
Like, for example, just the productivity in the sector is basically the lowest among all the other industries. Like, even agriculture has a higher productivity than
Yeah.
construction, which is, a totally offline industry. And it's very interesting, right? Um, and so just the more and more I looked at it, there was just seems to be like a huge amount of opportunity. For example, structural engineering and civil engineering in particular, they have sort of a shortage occupation throughout the world, in
Mm,
Australia, New Zealand, even in the US at the moment. So there just seems to be like just not enough people to basically do these jobs.
yeah.
And that's sort of where automation comes in, right? If you can sort of increase the productivity of existing design engineers, that would be extremely beneficial to the companies. And if by any chance they can also reduce their workload, it helps a lot, because you know, like a lot of engineers tend to do a lot of repetitive things, like over the course of their week. And if you can sort of help
Yeah.
sort of just automate that a little bit, it helps morale as well. And that's something which I've noticed, even personally, but also in sort of all the clients we've worked with.
So, I mean, get into more specifics. Like, what are some of the repetitive things that you've done personally, or that you're addressing actually right now for your clients? Like, what are we
Yeah,
doing over and over and over again?
yeah. For example, we're currently working with sort of a manufacturer of wooden panels at the moment, and their panels are extremely specific, and they work directly with architects, right? So when they have
Mhm.
to actually design, sort of their panels and specify it, to get it manufactured, they sort of have to get this SketchUp model from the architect and have to modify like a lot of details,
Yep.
and then put in their panels and then make sure everything works. But and then sometimes the architect goes back and changes something, and then sort of have to repeat like
As
a
it
whole portion of the structure
happens,
again,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean,
Um,
design by its nature is iterative, right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
So what we're helping them do at the moment is basically designing a whole software suite for them, where the architects can sort of just
Oh,
import their model and specify, um, you know, basically what panel they want where, and then the program basically, um, like automatically puts in the panels in different places. Like it gets them 80% of the way there. So all they have to
okay.
do is just get that updated model and then just clean out the bits, and then it's done. So that
Okay.
that like over like I think they do about 200 projects a year. So that can really have like a very sort of multiplicative effect. First of all, on their bottom line, but also just on the amount of projects they can do. It also increases their capacity.
Yes. So as you're speaking through this, I'm like thinking back to, my background in construction and the big issue that we have there with rework. So it
Yeah,
ties, directly into that rework pain point. So there's rework in the design phase,
yeah,
there's rework, when we actually go to build whatever it is that we're building, whether it be a bridge
yeah,
or a home or whatever else. Um, so
yeah.
yeah, that repetition theme, like unfortunately, is all throughout the whole life cycle
Exactly. And
of
even
our
personally,
buildings.
right?
Yeah.
Like when I was a structural engineer, I remember, like,
Mhm.
like we used to design the structure based on, say like stage two or like early stages. And then
Yep.
the architect would probably change something. And it might not be that significant, but it does have an effect. Like if they move a column like 10 meters away, it has an effect on all the elements around it. So it'll have to come back and do the calculations for everything. You have to rerun the analysis.
Right.
And like it happens quite often. And every time you need to run it just to make sure that okay, like what we're designing is stable.
Hmm.
Um, so if you can sort of just automate that process, and it's not a very hard thing to do, right? It's sort
So
of
wait, pause there. Like, not very hard to automate the process.
yeah, if a company does have a
Yeah.
standard way of doing things, it's not super hard to automate. The complexity arrives when there's sort of edge cases.
Okay.
um, so
And
so I think like
yeah, I'm thinking like, well, it's probably not too difficult for you to automate, having the solutions and the tools that you have, but yeah, not
yeah,
not everybody kind of can figure that out, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of the tough
yeah,
part.
of course, and that's where we come in, right? It's like sort
Yeah.
of like see, like it's sort of the thing where like it's easy to get 80% of the way there, right?
Yeah.
The last 20% is the hard bit. But if you
Yes.
get 80% of the way there, already 80% of the way there,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then you can just use manual effort for the rest 20%. Because there's
Okay.
always going to be some sort of human judgment involved. And as long as that is kept safe, you just automate what can be automated.
Fair
Um,
point.
and that's the
Um, yeah, I mean, going a little bit down a side road here, but on that point of you can absolutely automate what can be automated. You can get, that
yeah,
80% boost or efficiency gain.
yeah.
How do you know what it is? Like, where do you stop and like say, okay, we've got our 80%, this part, this last 20% needs to be done by a human. Like, how do you know where that line is drawn in
So
your
we
process?
usually take a Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. So we take a very consultative approach with the clients. We sort of sit down with the clients. We have, like a lot of meetings with them and their engineers. We try to figure out what they actually do at the moment,
Mhm.
what can be automated, what can't, what is easy to automate, what is like what we can do to get you sort of the maximum sort of return on investment. I would say,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can just be something super simple, right? I remember like we were working on these clients like a year ago, and we sat with them and we sort of figuring out their processes, what they do. So they work on a lot of like sort of different type of projects. So their
Mhm.
workflow wasn't as repetitive, but we actually found out they spend like especially their sort of directors and associate directors, they spend so much time just on sort of like invoicing and like sales and like following up with
Absolutely.
clients. So we
Yeah.
realized that actually the sort of the best way to save time for them was to just integrate all their like sales and marketing together.
Yeah, no, like,
Uh,
it's funny, like, we kinda chuckle about it, but that those back end stuff that, like, we never really think about, it takes so much time and effort and anyway, that whole different
yeah,
topic, but
and
anyway, yeah, so the best way to was to integrate all that.
yeah, so that's what we actually did. And because they're working on so many different projects, like it
Yeah.
just wasn't worth it to automate just for one specific project because they
Yeah,
didn't have like an extremely repetitive workflow, right? Like
okay.
sometimes they used to work on like sculptures, sometimes they used to work on like actual buildings, sometimes yeah, they used
Yeah.
to just work on lots of different stuff.
Yeah, like,
Um,
that's, like, nature of the built environment, right? Like, we need all sorts of different stuff. So a lot of firms and, the ones that
exactly.
I've been into have just such a wide portfolio of
Yeah.
types of buildings and services and things that they can do. So, yeah, AEC has a whole 'nother, like, level of challenge when it comes to standards.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
And something other interesting which I've kind of noticed is that a lot of these. like either like like a lot of these big firms, or maybe
Ooh.
even if you're like a
So
medium size.
hold on one second.
Yeah,
For me, I think it was, yeah, it's way better if you just hold it.
that's
So
better.
if you
Okay.
don't mind, yeah, thanks.
No, no, that's fine.
Just repeat where I cut you off. So.
No, that's okay. No, one thing I've also noticed was that a lot of these large companies, or even maybe like bigger, medium-sized companies, they tend to sort of
Hmm.
have the financial means to have their own tech team, right? So they
Right.
have people dedicated to it. But a lot of small and medium companies, they just don't have that expertise. And it's very interesting. And sort of that's what we also aim to target. And that's sort of what I want to do as well. Because, I think I read a stat somewhere that like about 95% of all engineering firms are small and medium sized, right?
Okay.
So it's a huge portion of the market
Well,
who like
wait,
actually
say
can
that one more time because I'm just processing that. That's
like
much higher.
95% like 95% of all design engineering firms are small and medium sized.
95, 95.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that is not what I thought it would have been. But anyway, continue.
So most of them are very tiny, and a lot of them work, like
Mhm.
home renovations, or like new homes, or
Yeah.
like maybe like small office buildings, for example.
Hmm.
So a huge portion of the market is actually just like either 5%, like 5% or less, right? So it's very, very tiny. And these people just like they can't afford to have their own tech team, right? And they
Yeah.
don't need like a whole tech team, just because like they probably do the same type of projects, so it's very repetitive work. So they just need
Mhm.
someone to sort of just hop in and like help them out,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. A little bit of a
and sort of
boost.
a little bit of boost. And that's sort of where we position ourselves at the moment.
Got it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. So, yeah, not everyone has, a whole deep bench of resources, and just a little bit of help can go a long way, especially if it's all this repetitive stuff.
Yeah.
Um, So I see we have a couple more people hopping in. Just
Mhm.
a really quick reminder, do leave questions and comments. We do want to hear from you. Would love to have that conversation. I also saw some thumbs up emojis maybe earlier on from LinkedIn. So please do give those. We love to see the reaction. So thank you all
Yeah.
for that. So I want to switch gears a little bit here.
Mhm.
We like in the industry, in the world at large, there's been,
Yeah.
a huge buzz with AI.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention AI somewhere
Yeah.
in a construction tech discussion these days.
Yeah.
And it's not really going anywhere, right? So
Yeah.
with automations, that's one piece of the puzzle, but there's also applications of artificial intelligence for
Mhm.
design and
Yeah.
engineering as well. So
Yeah.
what are some initial thoughts on that?
Oh, that's very interesting, and and actually something we've talked to like clients quite a lot too about. So there's sort of so artificial intelligence is also like a very broad term, right? So there's
Yep.
sort of these LLMs, which are like ChatGPT and Gemini, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's other sort of AI, sort of like
Mhm.
machine learning. There's like neural nets, etc., which are somewhat different, although they work on the same principle. Like what they accomplish is very different.
Mhm.
And when it comes to sort of these LLMs, right, ChatGPT and Gemini, like we actually basically stay off them for design work, just because they're not accurate, no matter how much you train them. They're just like not
Okay.
to the level of accuracy which would be needed for actual structural engineering design work.
Yeah.
Um, so the only so the only reason we would recommend to clients is if they sort of want to automate either their reporting, um, or like for them to use in emails, etc. Like we never
Mhm.
ever build anything to do like design engineering work based on LLMs, just
Yeah.
because they're not there at the moment.
And LLMs, it's large language model, so it's like
Models.
it's focused on
Yeah,
language, not necessarily like numbers engineering design. Yeah.
exactly. But there's another side to it, which is sort of machine learning,
Yeah.
and neural nets, etc. And we've actually worked with one client, and we've sort of like basically they wanted a tool which can sort of take in like like architectural drawings and sort of figure out where the wall columns are, and and then basically eke out like a very basic structural engineering drawing out of it, which they can just add on to, which is very simple. So we sort of helped label like a bunch of CAD drawings for them. I think we labeled around like 8,000 drawings
Whoa.
for them. And that's actually very, very accurate. I think we achieved like about a 92% like accuracy, which is actually pretty
Huh.
high. And if the program is unsure but what a certain thing is, they would just have a pop-up and ask the user to identify that element.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these are sort of extremely niche applications which sort of can work with enough amount of data. And then they do serve a very specific purpose, right? Like
Mhm.
this sort of model which we train can't be used for anything else. It's just for this.
So one
So
question or piece to highlight
yeah,
there for those who are tuning in who may not know a ton about AI. I think most of us are probably surface level. What's the significance of the labeling of 8,000 drawings and sheets and things? Like, what does that do for AI and the processes ultimately?
yeah. So the way AI sort of works is it sort of tries to minimize error, right? Like that's the easiest way to think of it. So when you label something, it's telling the program that, hey, this is this. So next time when it looks at another drawing, it's going to be like, okay, is it this? And then when you label it saying it's not this, it'll do a correction by
Mhm.
itself. um, it'll basically just change its equations. Essentially, that's
Yeah.
what happens.
So you're giving it the human knowledge so that it can
Exactly. And then it sort of
automatically
minimizes
process.
error, right? So the next
Yeah.
time it'll be more accurate in predicting something.
Yeah.
So essentially what it does is it just goes through like tons of different sort of
Yeah.
steps as such and tries to minimize the errors. Like it just minimizes it, like trying to be wrong.
Great. Yeah, I didn't want to lose like just the significance of that work. You said it's like so easily like, yeah, we just labeled, 8,000 drawings. That's a ton of
Yeah.
work.
No,
And
that's gonna
it
work. Yeah.
actually is what's the foundation is of, the automation that you're getting
Yeah.
ultimately. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. While LLMs, for example, they sort of also work on a similar principle, just on a higher scale with a lot of different amounts of data and a different set of equations. So they serve, I guess, their purpose well, but they don't serve,
Yeah.
like structural engineering purpose, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see where it goes. I'm always curious to see where the limit actually is for the technology to do things.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like I still don't think our profession is doomed by AI yet.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
yet.
a bit of a side note, but I don't quite think so either. I think,
Yeah,
there's a lot to be gained by, like, having partnership with AI, good responsible AI
yeah,
solutions, but there's still gonna be something that, a computer just isn't suited for, right? So you choose the right tool for the
yeah.
job and yeah,
Yeah,
um,
like especially at the moment, I still think there is a way to go, and also I think this is one of
mhm,
like sort of the gripes of the industry I have, because for example, say in software engineering, there's just a ton of data available, right? A lot of people commit their code to like GitHub, for example, like public
mhm,
repositories, and a lot of
yeah,
code is open source. A lot of data which you can just be like, hey, I want to know how this works, and you can go and see.
yeah,
Like even something as simple as even this Chrome browser which we're using at the moment,
sure.
Chromium is actually open source. You can actually just go and look, at the source code, right?
Okay, yeah, did not know
uh,
that. Good to know.
so, well, something like construction, like a lot of data is sort of held back, like it's not
Mhm,
available to the public, and rightly so, because there's
yeah,
a lot of privacy concerns, etc. Um, but if there is a way for like for us as an industry to come together and open source a lot of data, that would really help. That would really help building these AI models,
yeah.
and making them better.
It's you really just got to the core of the issue of, not
Yeah,
just like models and solutions for the industry, but also just in general. Like we across AEC, we're so siloed. We don't share anything. A
yeah,
big part of that is like our contract structures don't incentivize it. There's a lot of
exactly.
risk.
Right.
Yeah. So if we really want to get the boosters going, we're probably going to have to address that at some point soon. Is like where my thought
Yeah.
process is going.
No,
Um,
no, definitely.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, bit of a deep dive into AI here, but yeah, clearly a lot
Yeah.
of expertise. So, if anyone wants to ask a question and get access to this level of resource, please do ask away. So, what I guess building on this, like another question that
Mhm.
I get asked quite frequently, and I have my own list of things and general best practices, but for you on
Mhm.
the structural engineering and the design side, like what would you counsel companies to look for when they're evaluating different AI solutions? Like what's a red flag? What's actually a green flag? Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Like, that's an interesting question, actually. Like, I think probably is to just test the tool out for yourself. Like, I would
Yeah,
say.
I'm shocked at how
Um,
many orgs don't actually do a sandbox test or something, but yeah.
um, I, I mean, you can even do like a paid pilot, probably, like if it's not that
Mhm.
expensive. Let's just test it out. I think that's the best way to go about it. Because actually, because we built a lot of custom tools, right? A lot of the
Yeah.
times we had to sort of change the UI, etc., just because we felt that okay, this does save money and like time for the clients. But the thing is, like a lot of engineers, they're just like it's not sticky enough for them to use all the time. So sometimes they
Mm.
just like, okay, like hey, this works, but then this is how what I'm used to. I just want to do it this way. So a lot of times we had to sort of tweak our UI, find clever ways to get them to use it more.
Mhm.
And I think like that comes from just putting it out there, figuring out like okay, what are people doing, like
Yeah.
and then just tweaking things a little bit just to increase like usability. And I think that's the same thing with just any other software vendor, right? You just try it out, see if it sticks for you. Yeah.
Yeah, try it out. I think what you're saying too about tweaking it to different preferences and things like that. I've
Yeah.
I've seen so many teams and solutions not do that, and then
Yeah.
they're like confused as to, well, why is nobody using it? Like, well, each org is probably a little bit different. It's
Yeah.
kind of tough to find a happy medium per se, and I think
Yeah.
pulling in what you said earlier, like these are small teams, small companies. They're
Yeah.
probably going to want to keep their preference because it's what makes them special, most
Yeah.
likely.
Like
So,
sometimes it could just be as simple as, just opening, sort of say you're integrating different software, it's just opening the, this app which you're building along with this other app,
yeah.
which is pretty simple to do. Good. Yeah. Just something like as simple as that would sort of drive adoption.
So let's say you actually go in and you're
Mhm.
good. You're like doing your test. You've got maybe
Yeah.
a small pilot or a
Yeah.
sandbox environment to play around in. What
Yeah.
would tell you like, oh, this is probably not the right solution, or maybe it needs a bit more
Yeah.
maturity before it's quite ready, or this is a risky
Yeah.
one. Like, what would tell you that while you're testing?
Um, like I think, like I think if it works for 80% of your use cases, it's probably good. Like depending on what you're trying to do, right?
Mm,
Like
hmm.
there's always caveats to how you'd like sort of analyze this and what sort of organization you are, right?
Right.
Like I think some organizations are more risk averse than others, and probably so, right? Because they probably all carry different risk profiles. They like their contracts are probably sort of set up a different way. So there's lots of different things to consider.
Hmm.
Um, but I think as a general rule, if it works sort of like, especially if it's sort of an upcoming tool, like if it
Hmm.
works 80% of the time for what you're trying to do with a very extremely high accuracy,
Hmm.
like I think that's a really good sort of product. Just because there's always going to be edge cases in the industry. Like that's something I've noticed, right? There's always going to be like one specific thing for which it doesn't work, or like
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
here and then and there, and that's okay. Like it's impossible to sort of
Cover
build a
everything.
tool which covers everything, right? So as long as it sort of works most of the time with an extremely high accuracy, I think
Yeah.
that should work.
Yeah, makes sense. If like it's inaccurate, it's not broadly applicable, or at least mostly applicable to your workflows, you're not going
Yeah,
to recognize the return on the investment. So yeah.
yeah, exactly. And as long as your users also sort of like using the software, I think that's also not talked about. As
Oh,
long as the software is sticky and
yeah.
you actually want to use it, I think it's still
Yeah,
really good.
yeah. I that has a special place in my heart because I've seen literally the, like, emotional reactions and, quite
Yeah,
a range of, "Wow, this is amazing. I'm never gonna do another project without this technology. Everyone has
yeah,
to use it. I have to tell everybody about it,"
yeah,
to, "I hate this. This was a waste of my time. I'm never gonna open up another or test another technology
yeah,
solution ever again. It ruined my thing." So,
yeah,
yeah, that feeling that you get is a
yeah.
really big motivator for
And it's
having.
very interesting, right? Because a lot of the times people think like, "Oh, this software looks so pretty. Like, I'm sure it's like good." But it's usually not even that. Like I still remember, like in software engineering, you have a lot of ancient software which was coded like 30 years ago, and
Mhm.
they work so well. Like they work so flawlessly, and they get the job done. Good, no crashes, nothing. But there are a lot of modern tools which like just look so nice, but they just like don't work.
Can't do it. Yeah.
So,
Oh
so
my
I don't think it has like it just you just got to test it out, figure out
yeah.
if it sticks with you or not.
Don't judge a book by
Mm.
its cover for our
Yeah,
audience. So
definitely.
actually take it for a test drive. No, good
For sure.
takeaways. So we're getting into like the second part, maybe
Hmm.
getting a little bit closer to the end of our time. I do see maybe like one or two more people popping in. So do please leave any questions or comments, or if you have
Hmm.
anything that you want to ask myself or Manoj, please drop that in. We can respond. So kind of getting back to the
Hmm.
market, like the designers, engineers who are
Yeah.
doing this work, how and they're typically smaller firms as we've
Hmm.
established, 95%.
Yeah.
How do they benefit from like this boost in availability of AI solutions and automation? I think we talked a little bit about it,
Yeah.
but maybe like going a bit deeper on that.
I think probably like the easiest, and we looked at a couple of clients on this. Like the sort of the easiest win which we found is just like sort of bidding for proposals, because
Mm. Oh,
like I
yeah,
said, even with this
that's a
client,
big
right?
one.
Sort of yeah, like this client who we sort of helped automate a lot of their sales tools with. Like, I spent a lot of time just on proposals, and it's
Hmm.
one of the things which like, and like a proposal generally is a very like sort of text heavy
Yep.
um, document. Like there's obviously cases where like you would need to sort of step in and sort of customize it. But just AI, you can just give it like like hundreds of your previous proposals. They're like, hey, this is a new proposal we have, and it can be like, okay, like these are the new things. You can just be like, okay, this is this. You can just basically detail to AI, um, what this new proposal is, and then it would take sort of information from all your previous proposals and just sort of kind of logically put it together. Again, it won't be perfect, but it's so much better than you having to either change a template or
Hmm.
sort of manually write everything again. Um, and a lot of the times, the software can also sort of just access information from a lot of different data sources. Actually, for one of our clients, we built sort of this desk report tool, desk study report tool, which can basically just query a lot of the different national databases, so they can just enter their postcode. It can sort of get the flood risk of the area. It can get so it's a
Oh,
UK-based client, so it can get sort of the bomb risk in the area, like unexploded bomb risk in the area. It can, yeah, it can just sort of get like a bunch of
yeah.
different data points. Yeah, and then it's just super easy.
Okay, that
So
was
it
a
sort of gets,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, it's one of the things which can get you 80% of the way there, right?
Right.
Like it's not
Right.
going to be perfect, but it can just, it's perfect enough for you to just change.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, my takeaway or summary from that is, you can win more work faster, or higher
exactly.
quality, right? And you're
Yeah.
also getting a much um, broader or like different insights that you would never have
Hmm.
been able to get before pretty
Yeah.
easily because what AI does, it synthesizes all like so much data, volume
Hmm.
of data that
Yeah.
like a human brain can't process. So that's like
Yeah.
one of the superpowers
And
that it's
in a
helping
lot of
with.
countries across the world, like a lot of data is basically like somewhat available. Like if you give it like a look,
Mhm.
like a lot of these government bodies, they do have sort of APIs, etc., to access this data. So you can just access it by yourself. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so shifting gears. So I know your firm also has a bit of a focus, or maybe just by nature of these automations and things, like sustainability is
Yeah.
also boosted in design and engineering practice,
Yeah.
which we may not think about all that much, but it's a pretty great benefit. Can you share a little bit more on the sustainability piece?
Yeah. Like for example, like even something, like as simple as, like say you're building an optimization algorithm, right?
Hmm.
Like you want this algorithm which sort of goes through all the different like elements in the structure and figures out what the most efficient element to put in there is. Like like obviously the goal is to sort of save costs, but in a lot of ways it also is sustainable, right? Like if you can save 10% steel, for example,
Yeah,
that has a huge bearing on the cost of the project, as well as sustainability.
absolutely. Yeah, saving
um,
10% steel. I was just thinking back to a use case where this construction team did a great job. They just recycled a
yeah,
little bit of steel, and like it was a pretty good chunk of change that went right back to benefit the project. So if we can do that
exactly.
even earlier, hey, even better. Yeah,
Exactly. So it's a lot of like interesting stuff,
yeah,
like going on around, like which are sort of like a consequence of you trying to sort of save costs is also you improve sustainability.
yeah, yeah,
Which doesn't mean that you just need to do that. You can also directly target
yeah.
sustainability. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But automation sort of does help you be more sustainable. To answer your question.
Great, great. I do want to pull up. So we have one comment. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jonas. I think this was in reference to like earlier use case that you mentioned, but
Yeah.
a interesting case. So I think there's
Very nice.
probably like a ton of those out there because, like we're saying, like there's so
Yeah.
much different types of work and different areas and opportunities to
Yeah.
improve. So yeah,
Um,
thanks for sharing that comment,
I,
Jonas.
I I actually know Jonas.
Oh
We actually
yeah.
met up a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, awesome.
For people unaware, you should definitely go check out what he does. It's pretty cool.
All right. Great. Yeah, I love when we make like good connections in the
Yeah,
industry.
like I
So
didn't even know he was gonna like be on this call. It's
yeah,
very nice.
well, yeah. Live stream. Can't tell who's gonna show up, but yeah, glad we have our audience here for sure. And then quick note, I guess while we're on that topic, all of these are also on YouTube. There will be a recording posted, and then anyone can tune in later on and check out that recording. And
Yeah.
the same LinkedIn page will have the recording too. So
Hmm.
thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, on sustainability too, like is there
Mhm.
anything specifically with like embodied carbon and how that ties into design and engineering? Because I know there are organizations like the Carbon Leadership Forum. There's a lot of focus on reducing carbon. Our industry is like one of the worst with
Yeah.
increasing carbon. So yeah, maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So we generally sort of we worked a lot with sort of UK and Europe based clients, and especially in certain key areas, for example, London.
Mhm.
Like like an embodied carbon analysis is actually mandatory for buildings of a certain type, or minimum number of stories. So you actually need to like actually just do embodied carbon analysis just legally. Um,
Okay, yeah, you have to do it
so
okay. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a really good initiative, and there's a bunch of organizations sort of working together, including the ISRT, to sort of bring this sort of
Mhm.
together. And it's actually the case with a lot of places in other places in Europe as well. I don't know how specifically it's like sort of in the US. Um,
It probably
but
varies. I think like in California, for example, where I
yeah,
am, we may have a few more sustainability type requirements, but maybe it's not everywhere. So yeah, it's a little maybe not as focused on, but hopefully
yeah,
that's gonna keep on improving. But
yeah, it's
anyway.
actually very interesting. So this sort of optimization tool, which I was telling you about earlier,
Yeah, share more.
yeah, like we actually incorporated sort of embodied carbon into it. So they could actually see how much embodied carbon was saved
Yeah.
before and after. Um,
Wow. Yeah, that
and
transparency
that
of
was
data It's great.
Yeah, and actually, because we were working on actual sort of engineering data, like it was
Hmm.
actually so pretty easy to sort of match, like the different sort of embodied carbon values for the different elements. So, for example, if it's like a rolled
Hmm.
steel element, we can just be like, hey, like from cradle to cradle, like this is the embodied carbon. Like we could sort of map it pretty easily. And sort of actually, that's sort of we've been getting sort of a lot of inquiries regarding sustainability, and so people are generally like very curious
Hmm.
about sort of how to sort of get for this, and it's also become this thing where a lot of the times like people, it also sort of depends a little bit on the market forces. I feel like in a lot of the places which I mentioned before, like there is a shift from people to actually want sustainable buildings. Like a lot of sort of developers think that if a building is more sustainable, it's easy to sell sort of
Hmm.
to companies or people if it's sort of a residential building. So
Yeah.
I do think sort of a lot of market forces coming together as well.
All right. Yeah.
Sort of
Thanks
drive
for
forward this.
sharing those thoughts. So we're maybe in the last 5 to 10-ish minutes of our session. We will be wrapping up just a little bit early to give everybody time to probably get to other meetings and things like that. But if
Mhm.
you have a question or a comment, now is probably the best time to share that so we can get to you live. If you want to ask a question or leave a comment later on like the LinkedIn page or wherever you're watching, we can absolutely respond to it there as well. But for those who are tuned in, now's the time to ask any questions or leave any comments for us. So with everything that we've talked about,
Mhm.
design and engineering, especially like with a focus on structural, in light of all the technology solutions that are helping
Yeah.
to improve all the processes involved, where do you see the design and engineering industry going in the next 5 to 10 years?
This is like I sort of tell a lot of people this. Like I think a lot of the younger talent, which is sort of joining the
Mhm.
profession, they're actually super excited, by
Yeah.
AI, by like automation, by sustainability, like that. Like they sort of have very different values, I guess, to how structural engineers were 20 years ago. I feel they're really excited about trying new things. They're really excited about sort of sharing these values, um, sort of with their seniors. So I can only imagine, maybe in like 5 years when they themselves are at sort of senior roles, uh, they'll sort of push more
Right.
sustainability and sort of efficiency and productivity on their organizations. So I do think there's going to be like a substantial shift in the next 5 to 10 years. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
I love
that's
that
that's
outlook.
exciting.
Very, very, very bright picture. I've seen it too, like on the construction side as
Yeah,
well, where companies are able to attract top talent because they're showing, hey, we're innovative, we're investing in technology,
yeah,
we have all of these amazing things, available or, in process that you can help with to help create the future of the industry. And that, is coming in as a
yeah,
new engineer is just so exciting. Like, oh, I actually get to use some of the latest and greatest
yeah,
things.
and
And,
sort of
it's not always just repetitive stuff over and over again. So, yeah.
exactly, and they've sort of grown up with technology. They sort of know,
Yeah.
how it works better.
New
You know,
expectation. Yeah.
expectations, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So they just don't want to be sort of doing the same things over and over.
Absolutely. So I'll hang on for a little bit here just to see if we get any
Mhm.
last questions or comments. So very last chance to share that. And then for our audience and anybody else who may be like tuning in later on the recording, if they want to reach out to you to, discuss anything that you've mentioned here or more, where can they find you or what's the best way to connect with you?
You can either just go to our website, structs.digital, and you can sort of email me from there, or you can just contact me on LinkedIn. Either works.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
So with that, I just for me having this conversation and just meeting you and like
Mhm.
knowing a little bit more, I don't know where else you'd find someone who has a background in education in structural engineering, you said computer science, business,
Yeah.
also worked as a structural engineer, and then is also running a whole tech AI automation
No,
company.
definitely very niche.
So, yeah, I greatly appreciate you having you on today, sharing your
That was
thoughts.
a really interesting conversation. I loved it.
Yeah, 100%. We should do it sometime again soon, probably. So thank you so much for being on,
Yeah.
participating, spending the
Yeah.
time, and then also thank you to our audience for tuning in. So with that, we'll wrap for today, and I hope to see our audience back on the next construction technology webinar. All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Lovely conversation.
you.